The Boston Celtics escape Memphis with a narrow victory. That's now a 6-game win streak for the Boston Celtics. We're going to dig into what's happening behind the curtain here of this 6-game win streak. That and more coming up next here on Green with Envy. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? If you're like me, your heart skipped a beat right there at the end of that Celtics Grizzlies game. We'll get into all that, and to help me break it down, it is my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. How you doing, man?
Full of dim sum, ready to talk ball. Let's get it, baby.
Yeah, a little programming note here. Greg and I are going to recap here at the top half. For those of you on the audio portion, it's going to be myself and Greg recapping the Celtics 102-100 victory over the Memphis Grizzlies. And then second half of the podcast, which we recorded, just for full disclosure, we recorded before this Memphis game. And we probably presumptively talked about the streak should still be going. Luckily, it still is. But myself and Adam, we dig into some of the reasons behind the Celtics' current now 6-game win streak, and then take a look at the week ahead coming up for the Celtics. But as we do each and every time, let's do it here and let's cue up a morning box score. The Boston Celtics take down the Memphis Grizzlies on the road narrowly, 102-100 in a game that comes down to the last-second frantic sequence to end the game. Let's start with the Memphis Grizzlies here. And obviously, if you've tuned into the game at the beginning, you saw the laundry list of players not available for the Grizzlies. Potentially, that team by itself could go for the play-in seed in the West, but down a ton of guys tonight. They come out with a lineup that features Desmond Bane, John Conchar, Bismack Biyombo, Jaren Jackson, and Santi Aldama, a jumbo-sized lineup for the night. Let's start with Desmond Bane. He had 30 points, 11 of 27 from the field, 7 of 14 from 3, 8 assists as he kind of worked as the de facto point guard. My guy, Santi Aldama, one of my favorite non-Celtic players in the league, non-Celtic role players in the league. Massive night for him. 28 points on 11 of 27 shooting as well. 6 of 15 from 3, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. Jaren Jackson, 17 points, in and out of foul trouble throughout the night. 17 points, 8 rebounds, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 5 of 12 overall. Let's swing it over to the Celtics, and let's start with the big man. Let's go to Kristaps Porgzingis. 9 of 13 from the field, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. He finishes with 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 massive blocks, including the game-winning block at the end of the game during that frantic sequence that I mentioned. Jason Tatum, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, 7 of 13 overall. Sam Hauser lights out from off the bench, 5 of 7 3-point line, 15 points overall for him. Derek White doing Derek White things, 10 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Drew Holiday with some excellent defense throughout the night, 7 points and 6 rebounds. Jaylen Brown, only 5 of 16 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. Basically every Celtics starter struggled from the 3-point line tonight, 12 points for him, 6 rebounds and 3 assists. Celtics dominate the points in the paint tonight, winning that 42-32. And Greg, I think this is where I want to start. Was tonight more a credit to the approach the Grizzlies had, or was this a game that you look at the Celtics and you say, this is clearly insert X was missing from this team tonight?
I don't really understand. The insert X was missing, like something was missing from what the
was
Celtics
missing,
were
or
doing?
was there something was off from the Celtics? What was off from the Celtics? They made this game a lot closer than we really thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I just think it was the Grizzlies playing a really physical brand of basketball. As you mentioned, they had that jumbo-sized lineup. I was talking to my dad because I watched a game with my dad. My parents are visiting right now. Shout out to Alan and Charlie. I was trying to explain to him what was going on with the Grizzlies, and he was like, "Oh, so is this guy Aldama their best player?" I was like, "Well, he's one of Will's favorite players, but he's definitely not one of their best players." But he played great, man. You know, they mucked it up. They were taking charges. They were being really physical with the Celtics. I think when you don't have all of your guys, like the Grizzlies didn't have. You just play to whatever strengths you do have. And for them, they had a lot of big, beefy dudes, with Bismack Biyombo starting at
Big and
center.
beefy is definitely how you describe Desmond Bane.
Yeah, Desmond Bane, Kenneth Lofton Jr. I don't
Also,
know,
how you definitely Kenneth Lofton is jumbo size, never
David
like jumbo
Roddy,
size.
right? Like
Yeah,
all these dudes, they're just like kind of big guys. So they got really physical with the Celtics. The Celtics got frustrated by the lack of calls. And then, I thought that Tatum kind of disappeared a couple times throughout the game. He wasn't being very physical. He wasn't hunting a shot. He didn't shoot a 3-pointer until the fourth quarter. Um, Drew and Derek, I thought Derek White had one of his like most non-Derek White type games. Like he had a couple weird plays in transition where he just like got out Derek Whited by the other team. Desmond Bane, like at the end of the fourth quarter.
yeah,
Yeah,
that tie up, right?
the tie up where it looked like Derek White kind of got caught between shooting a 3-pointer in transition. Just like a lot. It was a very stagnant game. Like Scal was talking about it throughout the game, how there was no flow to the game. And it's kind of the opposite of what we've seen out of the Celtics so far this year. It's just been, everything's been so pretty, so free flowing and so easy. It was nice to see them get a win by gritting and grinding their way through a win in Memphis.
And that's a big theme that Adam and I talk about on the latter half of this podcast. Just the Celtics are winning in different ways, and we kind of go through some of the things that have made that so in this most recent now 6-game win streak. But let's go through a couple of the guys here tonight, and let's start with Kristaps Porgzingis, because I think Kristaps was excellent in this game. He's
MVP.
9 to 13 from the field. Say that again.
He's MVP.
MVP of this game, no doubt. It's not even a question. He's 9 to 13 from the field. He's 8 of 9 from the free throw line. Of course, those 6 massive blocks in which he was just deterring everything. Even if he didn't get the shot block, they could feel his presence there. You mentioned to me before we came on that this might be the, at least early on, signature Kristaps Porgzingis game. What was the most impressive about him tonight for you?
Yeah, that rim protection is huge, man. Like, it wasn't just that he was blocking shots at the rim. It's just like everything that he's doing positionally is deterring people from getting to the rim as well. He's discouraging a lot of drives, and when people do try and yam on him, they're getting denied at the rim. But I think Porzingis's ability to open up things on the offensive side of the ball, just like throwing the ball to him in the post against a mismatch. He didn't hit a 3-pointer tonight, but he was still dominant on the offensive side of the ball. He looked limber. He had a couple drives where, my dad doesn't watch too much Celtics basketball during the regular season. So, and my mom hadn't watched a game all year. So when she saw Porzingis, she was like, wait, how tall is this guy? Like, what's going on with him? He looks amazing.
He jumps off the screen for sure.
Yeah, he really does. And, in a game where Jason Tatum had 8 turnovers and just didn't look good at all. Very un-Jason Tatum like
poor Tatum games.
Yeah, and Jalen, struggling a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. I wasn't as upset with the way Jalen played. Jason played like shit tonight. But Porzingis, he looked like the best player on the court on both sides of the ball. We've talked about everything that he can do with his screening and what that opens up for the team. But, when I think this is what makes this team special. When Jalen doesn't have a great game, Jason doesn't have a great game, Drew and Derek didn't really show up in this one on the offensive side of the ball. Porzingis stepped up. It's the luxury of having all of these guys that are all-star level players. And then when you add Sam Hauser just shooting lights out off the bench, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, Shotgun wasn't messing around. Thank God we had him in that first half when just felt like nobody could, other than him and Porzingis, could buy a bucket. But let's stick on Porzingis, because I had something I wanted to ask you as I was watching the game, and I feel like, and this is kind of a coaching question.
Yeah,
and I can't remember. I feel like in the last week or two there was another game that felt like this where Porzingis was so dominant early. And I think he had 13 points in the first quarter or something to that effect, 6 of 7, 7 of 9 in the first half. And it felt like the Celtics could have kept going to that more and just almost in a game where, Jaren Jackson and Biyombo were in and out of foul trouble the entire game, partially because of Kristaps Porgzingis. He got to the line 9 times. And it felt to me like they almost didn't go to it enough. And I don't know if that's a little bit of the we kind of have to see, we have so many mouths to feed. Let's make sure that somebody else isn't also feeling it. I don't know if you felt that at all, but I felt that there were times from that first quarter to the end of the game where they went away from just, trying to find that mismatch with Porzingis and maybe a guy like Bane on him where he can just shoot over him, regardless of how strong and tough Bane is. That's the X factor with Porzingis. Cool. You can keep me from getting, 5 feet from the rim, but you can't keep me from getting 13 feet and I can shoot directly over you. And it felt like the Celtics, in my opinion, didn't quite go to that as much as they could have.
Yeah, I think, they didn't shoot a lot of 3-pointers tonight. The Celtics only shot 31 3-point shots tonight, which is
Mhm.
far below their season average. And I think with Porzingis, one of the benefits of being able to throw the ball into the post is when he gets those mismatches. So he's not really somebody that you're just going to like set wedge screens and cross screens for and just have him post up against another big. He doesn't really like to post up
Yeah.
against other bigs. He posts up when he gets those mismatches. So you have to manufacture those mismatches, and they do take a lot of effort to get those mismatches. There are a lot of ways that you can scheme out of it on the defensive side of the ball. I wasn't really paying attention, honestly, to how the Celtics went away from that, or I wasn't really watching for that, why they went away from that during the game. What I was more paying attention to as I was watching it is just like how they were navigating the physicality, and
Mhm.
I think the Grizzlies did a good job of kind of taking away the first and second options and making the Celtics go to a lot of ISO ball. And I think that's what we saw a lot in the second half is the Celtics couldn't really get the ball movement. Every once in a while, they did have one of those classic Celtics possessions that ended up in a wide open three. But for the most part, it devolved, I guess is the best word, into
Mhm.
more isolation basketball. And it was just very clunky. Um, you know, I agree that they probably should have tried to establish Kristaps in the post a little bit more. And that's something I would like to see them do more of, is kind of play off of him on like elbow actions, kind of how Denver does that with Jokic and how the Heat do that with
Well,
Bam
they had that
Adebayo.
that one play earlier, which I think someone called out as this was kind of an old Robert Williams play, but it was Kristaps at the elbow and then Jalen back cut along that baseline, and they
Hmm.
got that easy dunk, right? And so
Right.
once Kristaps opens it up, with his scoring ability, then there's more room for those type of actions or other easy buckets that can come, off of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then to your point, just like continuing that, they should have run more empty side actions with Kristaps and a ball handler. Like they like doing that with Jalen. Jalen. I sent
Mhm.
you that picture today to our group chat of Jalen being one of the most efficient points per possession off of pick and roll plays. Oh my God, so many P's with Kristaps
You wanna talk
Porzingis.
about Peyton Pritchard next?
Yeah. And Jalen had that nice alley oop to Porzingis early in the game, and that back cut, they get some great action off of that, because if you have Jalen flying out of the corner off a dribble handoff with Porzingis, it does stretch the defense in a lot of ways. And it didn't seem, I really honestly, I wasn't really watching from a coaching point of view tonight, because I was watching with my parents
Yeah,
and I was kind of just
that's
like
fair.
talking to them throughout the game. But I do think that's a valid point that you're making.
Yeah. I'm also curious what I'm really enjoying. So you and Adam had a big Jalen Brown discussion about a week ago, a little over a week ago, whatever it was. I'm really starting to enjoy this Jalen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, buddy cop film that we have
Yeah,
developing
it's
here.
great.
Apparently, they have they live in the same building. They travel to and from the team plane all the time together. And now, and I really like this point of you and Adam's conversation from last week, is that okay? Like, yes, probably the Tatum Porzingis pick and roll is probably going to be our ultimate. If we can get to that, that's probably our best play. But what if we need to go to the next thing? What's the
Hmm.
next thing if Tatum rolls his ankle again in game 7? What
Hmm.
happens if Tatum's in foul trouble? You need to establish that JB KP connection. And I think you're starting to see it. Adam and I in the conversation coming up highlighted a play from Jalen Brown and Kristaps in the Toronto game, in which it was a pretty simple pick and roll action where JB just is kind of patient. Kristaps leaks down the middle, gets the alley oop in the middle
Hmm.
of the lane, and,
Was
and
that
you're
the
starting
one
to
where
see
Jalen kind of got the guy in jail, had him on his hip?
had him on his hip
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
that was a
actually
very simple
I
play,
texted
but
my brother after that happened. I was like, Jalen's starting to develop a really nice pace in the pick and roll with Porzingis.
yeah, tell me more just about some of your thoughts, just in general. It doesn't have to be specific to tonight's game, but just in
Mhm.
general on their connection.
Yeah, I think A lot of it is not only pick and roll, but they're doing just like two-man action, right? So two-man action doesn't have to start with the ball handler being the typical pick and roll ball handler. They do a lot of like get actions and dribble handoffs. So a get action is when the guard throws the ball into the big and they go into a dribble handoff off of that. Like a give and go. Some people call it like a give and go, but it's like a get action when it goes into a dribble handoff. And I think that Jalen is starting to see like how much space he has, because Jalen doesn't do well in tight spaces. So I think when they go empty side, but they have Jalen starting in, normally it's in the left corner so that he can get to his right hand and he just shoots off of that. And he's such an intuitive cutter and back cutter as well. I think that Jalen is just like, sometimes you need another guy to kind of elevate certain parts of your game. And like Al Horford's a good passer and whatnot, but he's not Porzingis. We've talked about that all year. It's just another level of player. And sometimes you just have natural chemistry with another guy on the court. And I think this is the first time I'm seeing with a big man, Jalen having that natural chemistry. He did have a little bit of that with Marcus, that, certain plays like that back cut and transition, they would always run. But this is the first time you're seeing Jalen play off of another player on the Celtics roster, which you just haven't really seen. So much of what Jaylen Brown has done has been in isolation, in transition, being just like Russell Westbrook, force of will type player. And this is the first time that he's getting to understand the nuances of a pick and roll, of an empty side dribble handoff, like all these things that take time and take repetitions. And this is something that I've been clamoring more for, is that Jalen needs more repetitions with Porzingis. I think Tatum also needs more repetitions with Porzingis. It seems like they like going just to Jalen and Kristaps and having Tatum kind of being off ball on the other side and 45 cutting and things like that. So I'm really enjoying watching Jalen find this new part of himself with Porzingis. As you said, it's kind of like a little buddy cop thing. They have a great chemistry off the court, and I think that's translating to how they're playing on the court.
I feel like we got to come up with I don't have a nickname for them right now. I'm not going to put you on the spot to try to come up with one. The only thing I thought of briefly during the game, KPJB, is there like a KGB type, play on words? I don't know if you want to do that. And then you get
dude, it's late. I've been entertaining my parents all weekend. I'm not
like I said, that's why I'm not putting you on the spot right now. This is just something that was starting to brew in my mind, is that we need to find a nickname for them. You mentioned Marcus Smart as you were talking there. A little sad that we didn't get to see Marcus Smart against the boys, but
it'll be cool that his first game will be back in Boston. Real quick before we kind of transition here, I did want to talk about that stretch in the third quarter where Missoula took out the Jays and Holiday, and he went to that Derek White, Kristaps, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, and Sam Hauser lineup. When that happened, what was how long did it take for you to realize that's what Joe is doing? And did you go crazy when he did that for the last 7 minutes of the third quarter?
I mean, I don't think, I think the first 2 minutes or so, I was just like, oh, okay, he's just, we got a back-to-back, right? The Celtics do have a back-to-back tomorrow. So that started to cross my mind, but it did become one of those where it was like, how long is this going to go? And really the last,
then he went to Cada.
I was going to say the last 3 minutes didn't even have KP out there. Like Nimi got his first run for the last, whatever it was in that third quarter. I mean, interesting. If there's the time to do it, this is front night of a back-to-back against a team that's depleted, and you want to see what you got, because this is a game for me that always felt like it was 1 2 to 3 minute Celtic stretch away from the floodgates opening and this game being in our rear view. Right.
Yeah.
It never happened. That run just never really materialized. That's a credit to the Grizzlies. But I think for Joe Mazzulla, I didn't mind him experimenting with it now. It was a little confusing, but I don't mind the experiment.
Yeah, I didn't mind it either. I as I've said, I've been so busy entertaining my parents, I didn't even realize we had a back-to-back, so that actually makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But I was excited to see Kada get a little bit of time out there. He looks huge, man. He looks so big on the court, and he's
Kabengele, but just actually like as big as we wanted him to.
I was excited to see him on the court. My guy Lamar Stevens got a little bit of run. Yep. I'm sure. Are we planning on doing another recap?
We'll do a recap after the Hornets game tomorrow, so we can dig in more and see, because I'm sure Al Horford's probably going to sit that one. So we'll see who actually plays in that. But one last plea here before we go ahead and send this over to the second half of the podcast, and this is to Joe Mazzulla. I think Missoula's actually doing I'm really impressed with Missoula so far in this second
Same.
season, and him learning from the mistakes of year one. My new pet bugaboo with Joe Missoula: stop challenging shit 5 minutes into the game. Like, it's a possession when it's like 8-4. Like, you gotta stop losing these
You gotta
challenge
make
calls.
sure that it's like, I know they're quick, but come on, man.
Like, you can't lose your challenge 5 minutes into the game when it's 8-4. He's done it 2 or 3 times this year, and it's like, unless you're 1,000,000,000% clear you're winning it, you just can't do it. Because I think Jaylen Brown tonight got pretty frustrated with the refs, and there was a call early in the second half in which he got called for an offensive foul, which I don't think was the right call. Would have loved to have had my first challenge available there. So then maybe the refs see, oh, hey, we're not giving JB a good whistle. JB starts getting a better whistle. Could have had things go differently so Joe Missoula, this is my plea to you. Please stop using your challenges in the first 5 minutes of games. That's all I'm asking. You're doing a great job other than that, but please cut that shit out. That's going to do it for this side of the podcast. Here on the second half, you're going to hear myself and Adam. As I mentioned, we'll talk about some of the hidden facts behind this win streak, and we'll look at the week ahead. Greg, it's always a pleasure, my man. We'll catch you tomorrow night for the recap after the Celtics Hornets.